Welcome to LOA Today. Walt TC here with special guest Bill G on this Sunday, December the 23rd, 2018. It is 8 p.m. New York time. That's 5 p.m. Los Angeles time. 1 a.m. if you're staying awake in London, we really appreciate you. And in Sydney, Australia, it is around lunchtime, wherever you are in the world. Thank you very much for tuning in. We appreciate it. If you're listening to the live stream on Facebook, either on our LOA Today business page or in the Law of Attraction Change My Life group, we welcome you as well. This is normally the spot that Anne-Marie McEwen and I do, but Anne-Marie and Mike have some other holiday plans going on tonight, and this seemed like a perfectly good time to slide in. A good friend of mine from many years ago, long before I was doing the LOA Today podcast on a regular basis, I was doing a show on PRN Network with Bill G. Bill is one of my co-hosts on a show we called the Freedom News Hour. And Bill, every week we basically depress the heck out of ourselves and then try to pin the blame on everybody else. And both of us kind of burned out doing that. It's a good thing we both went away from it.
I won't. Yes, absolutely.
But thank you for joining me for the podcast tonight. It's been great to catch up with you before we got going here and to see what you look like, because we did those shows all those years. We never actually saw each other in video form. This is like an added bonus, right?
Absolutely. I was thinking back about those years that, we were doing the other podcasts, and I was thinking to myself, what show can I think of that had, that really, that changed my life and really, put a positive impact on my life. And I couldn't think of a gosh darn show that we did that really made me feel really, really good. But then I've been a regular listener to LOA Today for about 3 months now. And I'm absolutely loving the Neville Goddard stuff that you've been doing with Cindy Chavez.
Right.
Joel Elstein has just been absolutely great. I love your co-host, and I love the show. And it does such a great, gives a great feeling inside every time I listen to the show. And I am very grateful for it. I tell all my clients too to listen to the show if they just they're feeling kind of down or whatever. It's just, this is the show to listen to.
Well, thank you. That's great. Yeah, and I'm glad that you didn't strip your gears trying to find a good show that made us feel good when we're doing Freedom News Hour, because there weren't any. They were all depressing. Every single one of them. That's one of the reasons I decided to do the Daily Dose of Happy. I wanted to be on the other side of the line because it wasn't any fun on the negative side. That's for sure. So, interestingly enough, we both, after we went separate ways, because I remember you had a career shift going on, and I was kind of transitioning anyway with the show, and we went separate ways, and then we reconnect, what was it, about 6 months ago, and find we went to the same direction. We both went down the spiritual path. How strange is that? Because what we were on before was news and politics and all this other stuff, completely unrelated to this stuff.
Yeah, well, I was a total news addict for a while. And I moved to Kentucky and worked for a nonprofit working for that got through Head Start in the government.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
And that was a kind of depressing job. But then I moved to Vermont and I worked for as a controller to a car dealership, and that was very depressing. And and recently, for the last 3 years, I've been working at a community hospital, which has been good work. But it really wasn't where my calling was. I really wanted to do this spiritual response therapy. I've been doing spiritual response therapy, or SRT, since 2003 actually. So I've been doing it for quite a long time, but I never really did it professionally. It's been kind of a side thing that I've been doing. And then when we started living here in Vermont for a while, my wife Nina got her acupuncture practice up and going, and so a friend of ours found out what I did, because I do this stuff all the time with Nina, and then I did stuff, for some friends, and they're like, you really should do this professionally. And I was like, nah, no, I got my day job, I got my whatever. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I love helping people. I love getting together with them and just talking through their problems and whatever, and then just making them feel better. And so I really dived into getting into SRT. I became a certified consultant through the Spiritual Response Association. And I hung up my shingle and started seeing clients. And then I manifested, after listening to the show for a while, it was like, focus on what you really want. And I was like, I really want to do this full time. I don't want to have to worry about a day job anymore. And so they laid me off.
Once again, be careful what you wish for.
That's right, absolutely. So the beginning of November, I got my job went away at the hospital.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, time to put up or shut up. And so I'd already been working on my book at the time. It was almost ready for publication. I was like, okay, I'm going to put this thing out. I'm going to start, canvassing the neighborhoods, talking to people and talking to psychotherapists in the area and whatever, and start getting referrals. And lo and behold, the referrals started coming in. And I'm not as busy as I would like to be at this point, but it's getting there. And every morning, I mean, I'm doing the Goddard thing where you're like assuming that the feeling of that wish fulfilled and just going, it's here, I can feel it, it's right there, and I'm just gonna go for it. And so far, so good.
Fantastic. And I have to really compliment you because, well, the way you told it was funny, but you lost your job. And
Right.
your attitude is, this is great. I mean, that's the best possible response you could come up with. That was fantastic that you got there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm almost inclined to ask you, how did you do it? Because I'm sure there are going to be listeners who are wondering, how did he do that? How do you get let off from a job and feel great?
Well, losing the job and feeling great, that's the easy part. Paying the bills, that's the hard part. But I'm getting there. It's gonna be okay.
Well, very good, very good. Now, you'll also need to explain a little bit what SRT is. That's not necessarily an acronym we know around here on LOA Today very much.
Yes, SRT stands for Spiritual Response Therapy. It was developed by a man named Robert Detzler back in the early 1980s. And what it is a system where we research somebody's soul records using a pendulum and a series of charts. We figure out what it is that they're stuck in, and we clear those programs so that way they can manifest a better life. It's generally a 3-step process. Step 1 is figuring out what are the blocks that are preventing you from wanting to live a better life. So we clear those blocks out first. Then the next is we go into the more deeper blocks. We figure out, what are the past life blocks, what are the present life blocks, what are my, at what level is my soul in a state of ascension? And we clear those blocks. And then we go in and try and figure out, using the charts, what is your best destiny? And once we get that figured out, then we start applying that. After we clear out the bad stuff, we put in the good stuff, and then we throw in some LOA on there. We also throw in some meditation and that sort of thing to really get you going. And I've got a few very steady clients. I also, Spirit World works with incarnates and disincarnates too. I also do a little, modern day ghost busting on the side for people who need that. People who are like recent psychic breakouts, start seeing stuff and experiencing stuff, and then I also help them through that process as well, because that's a thing you can't really turn off.
Yeah, it's more like coping mechanism, I would think. But
Yeah.
the idea of a soul record, when you're describing that and you're describing clearing soul records or clearing stuff off of a soul record, I mean, part of me is also wondering, what does a soul record look like? But it's reminding me a lot of Linda Armstrong, who with Carlos Bausquita does the Friday afternoon podcast with me. She's an energy coach. And when she does her sessions with her clients, she is clearing stuff out of the way, stuff that's gotten in the way. So it sounds similar, but it also seems a little bit different.
This is Robert Detzler's basic primer book. It's the Freedom Path, and that's where your soul records are. you manage a golden palace in the somewhere in the sky. It is
Okay.
what we do in SRT is imagine, a good tarot card reader or a good seer or whatever will show you what the path is. What
Mhm.
SRT will do is we'll not only show you what the path is, but we'll tell you how to change the path. Because some people believe that they come into life with a certain degree of karma, and it's just their lot in life. This is what this is what they got to deal with. This is there's every soul comes into existence with a plan,
Mhm.
an experiential plan. So
Okay.
they want to experience stuff, so they incarnate to experience stuff. Now, some
So
of that
is that
stuff,
is that similar? Is that similar to what is sometimes called a soul contract?
yes, soul contract or soul program. They
Okay.
use
All
the
right.
word program here, but it's essentially the same thing. So
Same
what
thing.
we do
Okay.
is we go into the soul record, we find that Walt file, and we say, okay, all right, let's see how this is working out for you. And nah, no, this is not working out. We're going to throw that one away, and we're going to
And I
replace
know
it.
personally, I have plenty of those files that need to be thrown away. Linda tried to throw a lot of them away for me,
Right,
and
right,
got them all, but there's probably more hidden, like hidden storage or something like that.
right, right. And again, this is one of those things that I really enjoy doing. Uh, it doesn't feel like work, and that's also a great thing.
Mm. Yeah, I think Linda would agree with you on that. Whenever she is doing any kind of work similar to that, you can just see it's her face is effortless.
Mm,
She's got a smile. She's enjoying it. She's feeling the energy. Oh, I can feel it running down my back. I feel it in my arms. All that kind of stuff. It's an enjoyable routine for her. There's nothing work about it.
hmm And
Is it the same thing for you?
I mean, we use a pendulum with the work,
Okay.
and we have the series of charts that were written by Robert, and and like I said, when somebody comes to me with a question, I go in and I check the charts. I usually go to about two or three of them, and then we come up. Then a pattern emerges, and then we figure out what that pattern is, like a story. And then when we figure out what the story is, then we clear it, and then we can change that story to a more positive story.
And I also have a question, actually, yeah, one question from one of our listeners who's listening to the live stream. Deidre, she's one of our regulars. She's asking, are soul records and Akashic records the same thing?
Same thing.
They
Same
are the
thing.
same.
I use that word with people who understand what Akashic records are, but I use soul records for
Okay.
more of a general audience.
Okay. All right. So thanks for clarifying that. And then you've written your own book about this.
Yes, I have.
Conscious Conduit. So what now you used a term there that I had not really heard before. It's about ascension. What exactly
Ascension.
are we talking about?
Ascension, it's rather interesting. We're going into a period in human history where we're becoming more ascended. Our souls are becoming more aware of the spirit world, and we're becoming more aware of what it is to attract positive energy into our lives. A
Hmm.
lot of us are starting to shed some of these old programs, and that's what ascension based real actually is on a very bare bones level. Um, what How Robert describes it is that we are all originally part of Source, and we descended when we were part of the we yeah we descended from the all light, all love, all the time channel,
Uh-huh.
so that way we can become physical entities. And when we become physical entities, then we learn about this thing called duality. And with duality, there's good, bad, whatever, all the stuff that all the heavy stuff that's life. In
So we
order to
have false
gain,
contrast, basically.
right, right. And we do this so that we can gain the experience we need in order to bring that knowledge of what is light and love all the time back to source, because source doesn't understand light and love all the time without the contrasts. And so that's what physical existence is all about. It's about developing that contrast.
Okay.
But we're now reaching a portion in our history now where more and more people are becoming ascended. Their souls are becoming more ascended, and so the book is written to people who are either curious, self-taught, or recent initiates into spiritual response therapy. And the first part of the book goes into, and I've got the book right here. Oops, there we go. That's the book right there. And the first part of the book goes into simple tips and tricks that you can do to build a deeper connection with spirit. And then the second part of the book is about how to then take that ascension consciousness and turn it into a business, and that way you can start spreading the word. And then the third part of the book is how to deal with clients, because clients come to you from all sorts of places. I mean, it'd be great if all my clients were like perfectly happy people who are already manifesting and whatever. Then I'd be out of a job because they're already doing it. So my job as the spiritual counselor is to help guide their souls into that ascension process.
So is ascension basically, in Abraham terms, the raising of vibration?
Yes, exactly. A lot of what Abraham says is right in line with what Robert said in his books.
Okay. And Robert basically he's providing like an entrepreneurship manual for people who want to leverage spirituality.
In a sense, Robert himself was not really. He was more of a philosopher. He actually passed away in 2013. But there's still a organization, the Spiritual Response Association, that manages the education to make sure that it stays consistent and is still along the lines of what Robert originally wrote.
Okay, all right. And how did you stumble onto this?
Well, I stumbled onto this back in 2003 because I was living in a haunted house at the time. And I kid you not, I was living in a haunted house. It was not a fun experience because Nina's clairvoyant, so she actually saw them all the time. Disincarnates coming into the house all the time, and so we got the South Jersey ghost researchers to come in. We got some psychics to come in, and somebody recommended that we contact this person who does SRT to get the house clean. And so we called her up, and she did a really great job. And then she said, "You realize, though, your house is on the convergence of two ley lines, and ley lines are these energy conduits that surround the planet. They a lot of them go between holy sites and that sort of thing, and disincarnate spirits like to travel along those. And so if you live in a house that's on a convergence on a where they meet, it's Grand Central Station. So they're always showing up. Your house constantly needs to be cleared." And so I was like, well, I don't have the kind of money to constantly bring in this person every single week. So I'm just going to learn it. So I learned how to do it. And so I kept the house clean. It took about 6 months of constant clearing to get the house to the point where we weren't seeing stuff all the time. And then I started, but the clearing of disincarnates, that's secondary. I mean, that is just an added benefit of the entire system, because the system is really designed to help living souls to adapt to being ascended spirits, essentially.
Which raises an interesting question, because my understanding of the spirit, this physical, non-physical world, is that all of us physical beings have a whole bunch of non-physical beings around us anyway.
Right.
called angels or spirit guides or a whole bunch of other names, and who knows what they all are.
Right.
And that is normal. That's actually, by design, this is kind of like our support system that's there.
Right.
So the question in my mind is, what's the difference between seeing, say, uh, non-physical beings that are not part of our spirit group and those that are part of our spirit group? Why is one something that needs to be cleared and the other one doesn't?
There are differences. Um, there are just like you got high vibration and low vibration people, you also have high vibration and low vibration disincarnates. Low vibration, yeah. Well, I mean, and you think about it. Say you got a person who is generally an unhappy person, and they think they have no sense of spirituality. They're not connected to source. They're operating at a low vibration, and they die. And now their spirit thinks one of two things. Either they think they're going straight to hell, or they think that they only had one shot and they blew it, and now they're lost. And that is a what we call a separates, because we call them a separate because they are separated from source. And they lack the internal energy to move on to their next lifetime or wherever they need to be going next. And so they show up. These are the people, for people who can see them, these are like, I have one client who sees this, she calls him Farmer Bill. Farmer Bill walks up and down the street every day, looks like he's heading off to work someplace. And he's, wearing these old-timey clothes and whatever. She's the only one who can see him, so she knows he's a ghost or whatever. That's a separate. That is somebody who is stuck in their loop. Where they died or whatever. This happens a lot also with people who died violently, either by suicide or murder or from an accident, where they felt like they weren't ready. And so their soul is at a low vibration point when they die. And so what I do is I raise their vibration. I figure out what the dealio is, what is their why they're finding themselves unable to move on. I give the energy. I go through my charts and communicate through the charts, because I don't hear them or anything like that. I'm not one of those psychics that like, oh yeah, I see a ghost standing next to you. I'm not one of those people. I let the charts do the speaking for me.
Okay.
And then once I figure that out, then I say, okay, you're free to go now. And I do a clearing action with the pendulum, and then they go away. And usually my clients never see them again after that, because they've been cleared.
Now, you describe how you're helping to raise their vibration. Do you know if that sticks?
It does. Well, it generally does stick, because when we are physical beings, we have this annoying thing called free will. And free will allows us to accept a high vibration or reject it. When you're a disincarnate being, they're kind of outside of time, and so their free will is a lot more limited. And so when you're giving them the light and love energies for them to move on, because time works differently for them, we're in this physical space. We have this annoying thing called time. When you're in a non-physical space, it's a little more wibbly wobbly.
A new technical term for us, wibbly wobbly. Okay.
It's my Doctor Whoism.
Okay.
Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
Got it.
And so and then I'm by raising their vibration, then they're able to move on.
I guess the question that's in my mind is, there's a whole lot more beings on the non-physical side than there are on the physical side. Why aren't some of them helping to clear it?
Well, it's interesting. Robert had some thoughts about this. Of all the souls that were created from Source, only about 1/3 of them decided to become physical beings. The other 2/3, and when you're talking about numbers here, we're talking not only about all human beings. We're also talking about all animals, rocks, trees. Everything's got a soul. Everything's got a vibration to it. Now we're also talking about multi-dimensions. We're talking other galaxies, other planets, and so on and so forth. And you think of that multitude of beings and double it, and that's the number of spirit beings that never incarnated. And a lot of them are a lot of them are your helpers. A lot of people report seeing orbs and that stuff. Nothing wrong with orbs. They are usually helper spirits coming in, giving you a hand or whatever. The ones that I have to deal with when I'm working with clients, those are your low vibration ones. Those are the ones that are throwing things off of walls. Those are the ones that are, making noise in the middle of the night, keeping you up all night. Those are the ones that need work.
So these were never actually incarnated either as humans or any other kind of being.
Well, actually, the separates and those types of beings, yes, they were incarnated. But the ones that are, some of them, the orbs, some of the masters, the guides, your helper spirits, a lot of angels never incarnated. Angels were never incarnated. They've always been part of that. What do you call the cherubim, whatever. That's they're part of the chorus.
The chorus, right? And we're now in a chorus line. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I still have to work with this concept for a minute because I am confused. So let's go back to one of these people who are in the stuck mode.
Okay.
You describe them as like a suicide or a murder victim or something like that, and they never got out of their stuck mode, and their stuck mode is a low vibration mode. Before that event occurred, whatever that traumatic event was, they had all of these beings around them who were high vibration beings.
Yeah, but they couldn't see them. They couldn't see them.
They couldn't see them. But they eventually died.
Yes, they eventually died
into non-physical.
When you're in a low vibration space, when you're personally in a low vibration space, you can't perceive of your helper spirits. It's like you've turned off the light.
Yeah,
and they can't help you. You can't see them. A lot of people report guardian angels. In fact, I had this one gentleman who was telling me at a talk I did last week when he was working the scaffolding at a concert venue he was doing. He fell off the scaffolding and almost plummeted to his death. And halfway down, he felt a push.
Wow.
That pushed him gently onto the stage.
Wow.
And he didn't even get a bruise, let alone, fall to certain death.
Right.
And he asked me, what was that? And so I checked it, and I was like, yeah, that was a guardian angel. And your guardian angel came in and said, not your time. And they saved you. Now, he was already operating at a very high vibration. He was a very happy guy. He had a lot of things going well in his life. He had a good relationship. He had, he was very happy in his life. And so he had a lot of high vibration already attracting to him. And because he had this high vibration already in his life, the guardian angels could be there for him. Now, somebody who is at a very low vibration is the guardian angels are still there, and they're still screaming at you, we're here to help you, but they can't hear because they're in a low vibration.
Right.
And so the more depressed you are, the more upset you are, or the more patterns that you in, repeating patterns over and over again, getting bad relationship after bad relationship and all that stuff. You're in a low vibration, you can't hear them. And so when you can't hear them, you think you're all by yourself. And then, killing yourself becomes an option at that point. And nobody's going to be there to stop you because you can't hear them. Even though they're standing right in front of you, they can't stop you because you can't hear them. And so once you cross over, after that happens, you still can't see them. You still think that you're all by yourself. And
Right.
so you don't have that high vibration then to move on to the next phase. And,
I
you know,
understand that. But here's the thing that I'm still confused about.
okay,
You, a physical being who is probably higher vibration than most physical beings, but there are probably some non-physical beings that are higher vibration than you because that's the way it is for most of us.
right.
Okay, you were able to connect into the records and help clear the records enough that this person who was previously unable to ascend by themselves,
Right.
you were able to help them ascend. Why can't a non-physical being do the same thing? Why can't a non-physical being play the same role that you played?
A non-physical being is not a non-physical being because learning happens in the physical realm. When you're in the non-physical realm, there is no learning taking place. There's teaching that can take place, but there's no learning that is taking place. Learning can only happen here in the physical.
I don't understand that distinction between teaching and learning.
Well, teaching is they can teach you, things, but you can't teach them anything because there's no learning that takes place over there. They are providing wisdom from connection to source.
Okay.
When you're in the physical body, you can learn because you
Okay.
have this thing called time, which I'm learning this, step 1 and step 2 and step 3 because there's some linear time that goes along with that. When you're in a non-physical state, there is not a whole lot of learning can take place because time gets all wibbly wobbly.
The technical term again. I got that.
Yes, because
Why does that block a non-physical being though from being able to clear somebody? I don't quite follow that connection.
no, the non-physical being is not doing the clearing.
Well, I
Source
understand
does
that.
the clearing.
Okay, all right. So you as the physical being are inducing source to do the clearing.
Yes, I am the conscious conduit.
You're the conduit. Okay, that
I'm
hence the title.
the conscious conduit. I'm aware of being the conduit.
So again,
And when you're a
let me take the
physical
term and
being,
apply it. Let me
yes,
take the term and apply it the way I want to try to apply it.
right,
Why
right.
can't a non-physical being be a conscious conduit?
A non-physical being cannot be a conscious conduit because they are not conscious. They are unconscious because they are a non-physical being. They don't have the same level of consciousness that we do.
Well, that's a new concept to me. I was under the impression they were conscious. So
Well, they're not they're conscious, but it's more of a subconscious, unconscious state, whereas where physical beings have a conscious state, where we are aware, we are awake, we learn, we can learn point A, point B, point C, A plus B equals C. We can learn that as a physical entity, whereas a non-physical being can't learn in that way because time doesn't work the same way for them. Does that make sense?
kind of, sort of. I'm still a little bit hung up on the idea of a non-physical being not being conscious, but I may have to sit with that one for a while.
Okay,
Yeah, that's quite different for me. I will definitely have to sit with that one
okay,
for a while.
that's cool.
So tell us a little bit more about being a conscious conduit. What exactly is that? I guess a conscious conduit is somebody who does what you do. Clears people's soul records.
Right, right, and SRT is not the only way of doing it. Obviously, I mean, what Linda does is she is also being a conscious conduit. Because again, she is by opening yourself up to source energy and opening yourself up to spirit and high self, you're able to be that conduit. The whole book and the blog and whatever that I write, I don't really take a lot of credit for that because I'm opening myself as the conduit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm basically letting spirit write what I need to write, and I'm just the editor.
Sort of an automatic writing.
Right. Well, it's not quite there, but it's close enough. They
Okay.
give me the concepts, they give me the ideas, and then I look for the pattern, and then I check with the pendulum to see if these patterns are the patterns that I'm recognizing are the ones that are right, and then I move forward from there.
And you mentioned the pendulum a few times. What role does the pendulum play for you experientially? What do you
The,
experience with it?
the way the pendulum works is it works with the subtle muscle movements of the arm. So it is a subconscious movement of the pendulum. So
Like divining.
yes, it's dowsing. And,
Hmm.
and I'm actually a member of the American Society of Dowsers as well. Um,
Okay.
well, they mostly do water dowsing and that sort of thing, but they also, there's pendulum users there too.
Okay.
And so when you're connected to high self, when you're connected to spirit, you are no longer influencing the swing of the pendulum. You've reduced your ego down to less than 3%, and the pendulum is moving on its own based on that subtle muscle movements. So
Okay.
for a yes response, it's up and down. For a no response, it's back and forth. And when we're clearing, we just let it clear. And then when it settles back to a yes response, then we know we're clear. And
So
then we use the
somewhat similar to the testing that Linda and many other practitioners use, the muscle testing. This is kind of like a
right,
variation of that. Hmm.
right. I mean, it's the same kind of muscle tensing. I mean, there's another kinesthetic method that where you push with your ring finger and your thumb, and if it
Right.
sticks, then it's a yes. But if it goes, then it's a no. And I
Okay.
use that too. And if I don't have a pendulum on me, I'll use that method. But I generally carry a pendulum with me wherever I go because I use it for everything. Because once you've understood how to be that conduit, you can use it for making food choices at at a restaurant. You can
Okay.
use it for um, raising the vibration of the things that you eat. I mean, you guys were talking about that on a show recently about raising the vibration of a McDonald's cheeseburger. Now, I don't know if I can raise the vibration of a McDonald's cheeseburger to the point where it's good for me, but
I'm not even sure you want to try, but still.
but you can still raise the vibration of the food you eat when great choices are not available.
Right. Yes.
You can use this to enhance your relationships. I do couples counseling is something that I do as well. What makes this different from seeing a tarot reader or something like that is the process of what I do is more like a counseling session than it is going to see a fortune teller.
Okay.
So there's a very strong counseling aspect to it.
And what kind of counseling are we talking about? I mean, because there are a wide range of possibilities. There's like the psychotherapeutic type.
Yeah,
There's the life coaching type.
it's more the life coaching type.
More like life coaching.
It's
Okay.
more like life coaching, yes. Because
Okay.
I'm not a therapist. I don't deal with that sort of thing. Although I do have a client who is autism spectrum. Although I'm not addressing that aspect of it. He's got other counselors for that. What I'm
Right.
dealing with is the fact that he is a recent psychic breakout. He's talking to spirits all the time, and he's trying to make sense of it. And so what I'm doing is I'm teaching him how to meditate. I'm teaching him how to quiet his mind so that way when the messages are coming in, it doesn't confuse and scare him.
Mm-hmm.
And his family members.
Especially
His family members are the ones who called me.
well, especially for somebody from the autism spectrum. I mean, Alex King, who does a couple of podcasts, is in the autism spectrum, and so she could address this more accurately. But my understanding is when you're in that spectrum, you already are getting more data than you can handle. So you add this kind of data, and it's going to probably be even more overwhelming than it already would be.
Right, and then actually you'll find that a lot of people who have autism spectrum are already psychic. They can already see them because they see everything. They're seeing details that most of us just ignore, whereas since they're seeing everything coming in at once, it's just one big imagine having your headphones on and you're blaring 5 different radio stations on at the same time.
Mm,
That's every day for them. And
right.
so, and then you add in if there's emotional problems at home or that sort of thing, it just gets a lot worse for them. And then on top of that, now you're getting spirits coming in and talking about stuff, and the thing is, it's like a party line. Anybody can come in. You've got your helper spirits coming in, but you're also getting these low vibration spirits coming in, and they're all talking at once. And so with this particular client, I'm just working with him to quiet his mind so that way he can filter out some of the noise and be more of a conduit rather than just a sound machine.
Now you realize you just dated the two of us by calling it a party line, because
Right.
lines don't even exist. So,
Actually, when I told him that, he looked at me like I had 5 heads. So I said, no, it's like an internet chat room.
there you
with
go.
no filters.
With no filters. Yeah, that's good. Which is essentially what a party line was.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Okay. Part of me is still sitting over there thinking about non-physical beings not being conscious. I'm gonna have to work on that one for a while, but I am getting what you're talking about here.
Okay.
It does make some sense to me. So when you sit down, you do a session with somebody who, I mean, how do you decide, first of all, whether they need to have records cleared?
Well, everybody needs records cleared.
Oh, well, that makes it
So
simple then.
whether or not they're ready to hear which records need to be cleared is a matter of whether or not they feel as though they're ready to do it. So I give everybody a free 30-minute consult right off the bat, just so I can get an idea of where they're coming from, what their issues are, and then at that point we'll decide, okay, we can move forward or not. And so the first thing we do is we try and figure out, well, what it is. I mean, you're coming to me because, say, you broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever, and you can't figure out why I keep attracting, alcoholics in my life.
Mm.
Why has every boyfriend ever come across as an alcoholic? And so, well, it's likely you've got some kind of soul pattern going on. You have some sort of contract in here that keeps coming up. And so the first thing we do is we clear out the programs that are preventing them from hearing the fact that they have a soul program that's attracting the wrong people all the time.
Mm.
And then once we get those surface layers done, then we'll go into the past life records. Then we'll go into the other records in their lives to find out what it is precipitating this pattern. What is the programs? Some of it could be very surface level stuff. Some of it could be very, very deep stuff. It could just be that you came into this lifetime saying, I want my heart broken as many times as possible because that is just because I want to bring that experience to me to the other side. And so, and it's amazing. Some people look at me like, why would anybody do that? I'm like, the soul doesn't care. The soul just wants the experience. I mean, have you ever seen a little boy seeing that boiling pot of water on the stove, and you say, "Don't touch that," and you turn your back, and that's the first thing they do. They touch it. Why did they do it? They did it because it was an experience. It was there. It was there. And so what we do is we figure out what the there is.
So you're giving me an answer to a question I've long had, which is, if I had planned out this life the way it was, my first question is, what the hell was I thinking? And then you're telling me I wasn't thinking. It was just an experience.
It was just right. But the beauty of this is that what we can do is we can figure out what that recurring pattern is, and then we can change it. You can say, okay, lesson learned. Don't need to repeat it.
That's true. Yeah.
We've learned that lesson. We've done it. Not only did we do it in this lifetime, we've done it in a dozen other lifetimes. Lesson learned. Fine. We get it. Let us move on. Let us find out now let's figure out what is my highest destiny. if I did everything absolutely right, what is that destiny that my soul said, you know, it would really be nice if I did that. Wouldn't it be nice if, what you were, I think you've said that too, wouldn't it be nice if I did that?
Right.
And so we clear all of the bad stuff, all the heavy stuff out of the way. Now we can focus on what is the best destiny here? How do we attract that? I wrote a blog this past week about New Year's resolutions.
Oh,
And
great.
why is it that people can't seem to get the New Year's resolutions right? And part of it is that they're coming at it from a perspective of lack. So already they're not doing it right.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is that we've come into this lifetime, into all of our lifetimes, this incarnational cycle with this pre-program that we're going to be suffering, because only through suffering can we learn stuff. But now that we're moving into this period of ascension, now we can say, okay, we don't need to suffer so much anymore. We can now clear those programs. We can now say enough of that, and then be able to move on to something better.
Okay. I have another question from our listeners, again from Deidre. She says, does a pendulum have to be held by a person to work? For instance, can I hang it from something that does not move at all, like the edge of a table, and have it work?
No, not really. It needs the thing is, it needs a conduit, and the conduit is the physical being. If you're just going to hang it up, then it's just being influenced by the earth, and I guess it can work in some ways that way, but not for this work. This work, you actually need someone consciously asking the question and then letting high self and spirit answer the question.
Okay. And Jeffrey jumped in with on our "Wouldn't it be nice" phrase. He said, "Wouldn't it be nice if we were older? Then we wouldn't have to wait so long." Quoting a song. That was a Beach Boys song.
And actually, I do have some clients that are not young. I mean, I've got two clients that are in their 80s, and right now they're like, I want to. What is this? How is this going to help me, being someone who's at the end of their life? And I said, it's going to do great things for someone who's at the end of their lives, because even though you've had a whole lifetime of all the crap that you've been going through in your entire life, let's get you ready for the next one. Because there's going to be a next one, because all time exists in a singularity, a single moment. You've got thousands of lifetimes, because whatever we clear in this lifetime is going to clear all the other lifetimes. And so that when you come here next time, when you come around for your next lifetime, we're going to be clearing a lot of this crap out of the way, and you're going to have a much better time of it.
So that also raises another question in my mind. I mean, I'm still stuck, like 20 minutes ago, on the idea that non-physical beings don't have consciousness. But
they do, but not in the same way. They do have consciousness, but they don't have physical consciousness.
And that distinction, whatever that distinction is apparently the reason why they can't do the kind of work that you're doing.
Right.
And that's the part that I'm thinking. That's the part that I'm addressing. So it almost seems like it's getting to the point now where we have this need kind of all these physical beings to learn this skill so they can help this huge army of non-physical beings to clear all this stuff that they need cleared out. I mean, am I reading this wrong?
Yes, exactly. You hit it right on the nose.
This is a pretty massive mission we're talking about here.
It is, and it's a mission that I am so on board with. It's something that it is my life's work.
Wow. Okay, well, I have one more question. So, how much do you charge these non-physical beings?
I don't charge anything to the non-physical beings. But
so you gotta do something about this model.
but the non-physical beings I'm not doing a whole lot of work with. What I'm working with are the physical beings whose lives are being influenced by the non-physical beings.
Ah, okay, all right. I don't know.
Again, I've got a client.
Leave something to be desired. I mean, basically, we're charging you.
I have a client where she was having trouble sleeping at night because stuff was being thrown around the room. She had the big knocking and whatever from these beings that just kept showing up. And it's not that they weren't there before. It's just that she suddenly became aware of them. And once that switch flipped on and she was able to see it and hear it, you can't switch that off. There's no off switch when it comes to psychic abilities. You either have them or you don't. And sometimes they'll show up late in life, sometimes they'll show up early in life, and there's really no real rhyme or reason about when it happens. But once it happens, you can't shut it off. So the question for those particular clients is, what do I do with this? How do I get to a place where I can function as a person? Because I've got this other client, he works at a funeral home, and it's not the non-physical beings that he's getting from the funeral home. It's all the crap that the people who are grieving are bringing with them that attach to him. And he's like, how do I get rid of it? And it's like, well, you don't get rid of it per se. You clear it, and you learn how to deal with it. I teach you how to raise your vibration, so that way those types of low energies don't stick to you anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would make sense. Obviously, if you're dealing with these low vibration entities, you just vibrate at a different level and they go away.
Right, they go away. Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that they're not there anymore; they're just not sticking to you.
It also makes me wonder. I mean, I've asked this question before, and I've been talking with people who are very much into high vibration anyway, so the conversation never went very far. But this time we're also talking about low vibration entities. So I'm going to ask, what about an entity that's like I'll pick some of the worst ones from history, like a Hitler spirit, a Mussolini spirit, a Genghis Khan spirit that is such a low vibration that it doesn't even move with such a low vibration.
Well,
those are also still around, I imagine, I would think.
Now, it's funny that you would say that, because sometimes those are high vibration beings. Sometimes they came onto
because or something?
no, because sometimes those types of entities come to Earth with a mission to unite a certain people and to raise people's awareness, to get people out of their comfort zones. So to say, I don't know. I've never researched Hitler, so I don't know. But I would think, though, that there are some entities that are so bad that it's a call to action to get people who may have been a little too comfortable to then raise their vibration. They're, comfortable in their own ignorance. And so a low-level being comes along and really shakes things up, so that way more people become more ascended.
So it's aversion therapy.
Yeah, you could call it that, yes. You don't really know what the issue is until you've actually researched it. And so, at that point we can pull the pendulum, we can throw the pendulum and see what happens, see what comes up. And the thing is, what's true for one person is not going to be true for somebody else, because it's all very personal. So how somebody interprets something, or how their soul interprets something, is going to be different. So,
And then the other thing is, you said when you're checking the record, I can't remember exactly how you expressed it, but you do your dowsing with your pendulum, you're checking the record. It's not like you're looking at a database on a computer screen. So what are you getting?
What I'm looking at, I'll show you real quick. These are the charts. These are charts by Robert, and we go first to the first chart. And the first chart then tells us which chart to go to.
Okay.
And then I go to that chart. I write down what quadrant it takes me to in the chart. And then I write down the words there, and I write down the words, and I write down the words. And then, usually 2 to 4 different charts come up for a given question. And then we look at the pattern, because usually there's a pattern where the question guided the high self or spirit to a certain number of charts. And then a story will emerge. And again, the story just comes to me. Once I'm fully connected, then the story then the blanks get filled in, and then I tell the story to the client, and usually they're like, "Oh my God, that's exactly right." And then it's like, "Okay, well, all right, we figured it out. Let's clear it and replace it with a new pattern that is going to be more life affirming rather than life negating."
So you're receiving what? I mean, you're translating in some way into this monologue that you're saying to your client. The client says, "Yes, yes, yes, I get it. That's exactly you're right." All that kind of
Right.
thing. But what are you getting? I mean, Esther Hicks describes what she receives as blocks of thought that she translates into English. What are you getting?
Similar. It's similar. It is like blocks of thought. Yeah. I don't get big, I don't get rainbows and unicorns and that kind of stuff. I don't get these big visual. It doesn't come to me visually, but I'm essentially a storyteller. That's really what I how I approach this. So it comes to me in the form of a story
Okay.
with characters and drama and that sort of thing.
So you're not actually having to construct the story. You're basically just relaying it.
No, I'm just relaying the story. Yes.
Okay. All right. So you're not experiencing it as a visual. Are you experiencing it as words?
As blocks of thought
The block of
that
thought.
translate into words. Yes.
Okay. Do you find yourself consciously doing the translation, or is it just kind of flows there?
It just goes there. It just goes there.
Okay. So how was that the first time you experienced that? That had to be a little bit weird.
It was exciting. It was exciting because when I was learning how to do this, I would just go to a chart and then, the client would say, "Well, what does that mean?" I was like, "Heck do I know? I have no idea what this is. We're just going to clear it. Let's just clear that out." But eventually what happened was, as the more I did it, the more of a conduit I became, and then the more I was able to, um, you know, get those blocks of thought and then be able to translate them.
Wow. Okay. Now, I know I'm going to go back to the Abraham Hicks example because that's the one that I've heard the most detail about in terms of what
Mm-hmm.
the people involved experienced.
Right.
And what Jester, that's a combination. Jerry and Esther. What Jerry and Esther experienced was Esther experienced it in terms of how she felt. She felt
Right.
this really, really calm, really, what we would call high vibration, really good feeling space that just was very comfortable and so forth.
Right.
What Jerry experienced it was he all of a sudden had somebody he could talk to who could answer all these questions that had built
Right.
up the years, right? So
Yeah.
two entirely different experiences
Yeah.
within this one couple, right? And Abraham has often described how they were the perfect couple because of that. One
Right.
could be every day, one could be asking the questions and so forth. What was your experience in a way that is kind of similar to that? How can you relate what it was like from your perspective?
Well, the the charts are my Esther, and
Mhm.
I'm the Jerry,
Jerry,
where
okay.
I'm asking the questions, and it's providing me the answers, but it's providing it in a lot of ways a pretty cryptic way because the charts were written by Robert, and some of the quadrants are quite cryptic. Sometimes they're only one word, like accepting or imaging, or the intention is growth. And so you combine that with a couple of other charts and the question, and now you've got a story. Now you can combine those phrases into a story. Another way you can do this is um, by letting the pendulum pick. Sometimes a client will come to me and like, all right, I'm all out of questions, and it's like, well, we'll call this pendulum choice. And so with pendulum choice, we'll pick up 3 or 4 of them, and it turned out to be that was a burning question in their mind that they just didn't feel comfortable asking,
Mhm. Sure.
but then it came up anyway because spirit picked the most important thing to go to.
So as you're relating the story, and I emphasize the word relating, you're
Right.
relaying as you relate. As you're relating the story, Do you feel like you're making the story up? Do you feel like it's just kind of coming to you out of thin air? What's I'm trying to understand what your experience of it is.
My experience is I don't feel like I'm making it up. Sometimes I get stuff and I'm like, that cannot be right. That is that is the dumbest story ever. And then I relate. I was like, I have no idea what this is talking about, but this is what came up. And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, okay.
So in a sense, it's kind of like the way manifestations feel very
Right.
often, deliberate created manifestations that kind of come out of nowhere. Like, how did that happen? I don't understand
Right.
even how that could possibly have happened. Kind of the same kind of experience, it sounds like.
Because sometimes stuff comes up and I'm like, oh gosh, I don't really want to tell them this because some of this stuff gets pretty dark, and it's like
Mm,
because they're asking me a question about parent or something like that, and I'm looking up like, oh my gosh, I'm seeing sexual abuse, I'm seeing physical abuse. I'm like, okay, did they sexually abuse you? Oh yeah. I'm like, holy
mm,
moly.
wow. Now,
And
I would also think that that would have the potential for affecting you. I mean, we were talking about how this stuff can attach to people. How do you keep from having it attached to you?
I do that by keeping my vibration high. I meditate every day. I make sure to keep my vibration as on a highest level I possibly can do. And then before I work, I always make sure I'm clear, and I always make sure that my client is clear, that the room is clear, and then after we're done, we clear again. We clear myself, we clear the room, and ever since I started doing that, I've never had a problem with holding on to anyone's energy afterwards. And even after the session, when they call me up with some follow-up questions, it doesn't reattach. So,
That's
like I said, I
good.
think I'm perfectly suited for this work.
Although it does sound like you use a lot of psychic air freshener, but I
Yes,
mean, it's probably a good thing, you know?
absolutely.
Yeah, keeping the air clean. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Well, I'm not really sure where else to go at this point. We've kind of boggled my mind, really, but
Oh,
you know,
good.
that's okay. That's
Um,
not necessarily a bad thing because I'm sure that that'll lead to other stuff. Besides, we're actually past our normal time for the hour.
yeah,
Before we go, though, I want you to tell people how to find your book and how to find your practice, and I will also include links in the podcast version, the recorded version, where people
excellent.
can click through. But how do they
Well,
find you?
the book, the book is available on Amazon. It's published through Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. So you can get it on Amazon. You can get it in Barnes and Nobles. My website is ninag.com. That's ninagee.com. You can reach me directly at bill@ninag.com. And the business that my wife and I run together is called Vital Bioenergetics. We're also on Facebook, Instagram. So we're all over the place.
Sounds good. Well, you've got quite an operation started there, and even though you kind of got booted into it because you asked for it,
I asked for it. I
you
manifested it.
you did. Not quite necessarily the way you had in mind, but there you are. You're doing it.
Well, the universe though works in mysterious ways, and actually, it works exactly the way you want it to. Because I did not have the bravery. I was not brave enough to do it on my own.
Right, right.
I had to get the universe to kick me in the butt on this one. So I'm so glad it did.
Well, that's good. I'm glad to hear that. Hey, Bill, it's been great reconnecting with you after. I was trying to figure out how many years. It's been like 5, 6, 7 years or something like that since we last did
Actually,
that.
it's about 8 years actually. Yeah.
8 years? How long it is? Wow. Yeah, it's been a while. But it's great to reconnect after all this time and to find that we're talking in relatively the same field. That was really a
Yeah.
mind blower for me.
It
But
is.
once again, it's also the way manifestation works.
Yeah.
And I wish you continued
I
good
gave you a
fortune.
shout out in the book too.
You did? Oh
Yes.
my God. Well, now I'm honored. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. I appreciate that. But it's been great, and I hope we'll continue to stay in touch. We'll have to have you back sometime as a guest host
Absolutely.
or
Would
something.
love it.
That'd be
Having a
great.
blast.
Yeah, excellent. And keep us up to date with what's going on with your practice, with your newly established practice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So good enough. All right. Well, on behalf of my listeners, thank you for tuning in, listeners. We hope that you'll join us as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.